What up, ladies and centers? Lovely to be back on another Tuesday edition of the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio. You guys know how we roll, man. We're in here on another Tuesday night. Pardon my voice, by the way. Football's underway. I've been yelling. It's a little raspy. Sometimes the kids just need that, you know what I'm saying? And I apologize for the future of the show. We're going to keep it going. I know I promised you guys film breakdowns. Unfortunately, NFL Plus does not have full breakdowns at this time, or coaches film a preseason. I'm sure they will as far as the regular season is going. At least that's what the ads are saying. So I'm sorry that info hasn't been put up on Twitter, but we will get rolling once that's ready to go. A lot of good things ahead for the Sin City Sports Show. Again, welcome, folks, ladies and centers, to another Tuesday night edition of the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson, and we are at it again. You can get at us on our Twitter at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson. We will be killing it. Taryn Rodriguez, as always, is in the chat, man. Thank you so much for joining. I want to do a quick apology also to my IE Sports Radio family. I have been so wrapped up in football and some family stuff that's come up and work that I have not been a very good teammate in listening to as many shows as I should have. I don't get out of football until probably about 8:30, 8:45, and I was basically on my way here from practice to set up, the show and do what we can. So it's going to be like that for Tuesdays for a little while, but just know, folks, I'm out there. I'm trying to do community work. I'm currently the sponsor rep for a youth football club here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I run a program, the business side, the money side, the sponsor side. I manage or overlook what looks to be 157 players this year, ranging from 3rd to 8th grade, and then about 32 volunteer coaches. We have to make sure everybody's certified, everybody's got physicals, kids are checked out, pads, all that stuff. And we're just in the second week, technically the 4th practice. So it's been crazy, it's been hectic. And thank you for your patience. I haven't been as great on Twitter. We'll get better on that. And again, I can't wait for the breakdowns to come, because once NFL Plus gives me that access, man, I will be burning the candle on both ends with that, because that film is what I love to do, and breaking down what I think are the Raiders' strengths and weaknesses and what I believe will be the difference maker for that Raiders team. I'll be happy to do that. So when we get back, we'll start with the Lady Aces and kick off the show. And welcome back, ladies and sinners, to another Sin City edition, or the IE Vegas edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're back at it, man. Taryn Rodriguez joining the show as always, being a great teammate. He kicks ass out here. Good evening, Cale. Have an awesome show, man. That's the plan. That's always the plan every Tuesday. It might be a little rocky. I'm not as prepared as I normally am, but you know what? We're going to kill it, because guess what? We're going to be spending most of the time talking about my Raiders. You guys know how it is, man. The first preseason game was underway. The Hall of Fame game was a lot of fun to watch. He said, hey, it's no problem. We know how busy you are, and we've seen you being a team player. You're totally fine. Man, you're way too nice, because I haven't really been a team player. I think you're just being nice for the show's sake, but I appreciate it. Listen, folks, Lady Aces are killing it. They are on to a start. We'll shape it out like this, right? WNBA playoffs is underway here. The 17th of this month. It's the 9th. The last regular season, or the regular season end, is on the 14th. And the Lady Aces are still killing it, man. They're still where they need to be to basically put themselves in position to they clinched a playoff spot a long time ago. They're still in the lead in the West. There's no reason for them to fret. I do think they need to, I will say this, I do think they need to get it together a little bit, because the Seattle Storm are right behind them. But overall, with the season coming to an end, you already clinched that playoff spot. If you're talking about league-wide, they're second in the league. And really, they're one of the only teams that's been able to keep the Chicago Sky honest. Because the Chicago Sky is a good basketball team, and the Lady Aces are one of the only ones that's really competing. I've said this for a couple weeks. I know that my man Taryn Rodriguez has been on the same page. I think the Lady Aces and the Chicago Sky will eventually meet up in the WNBA championship, just like they did in the Commissioner's Cup. That should be fun to watch. Only the WNBA championship. Listen, the Commissioner Cup is cool. I like it for competition's sake at the end of the season. but it's still not a championship. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Taryn chimes in and says, so the Las Vegas Ramblers are your new National Volleyball Association champions. You were right. Las Vegas is starting to become a pro city. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Like, look at the buzz. I don't know if you've been paying attention, Taryn, but Vegas is running wild. The Raiders are so popular. I want to say it was a couple weeks ago, statistics came out on season tickets, and I retweeted it as fast as I could because the Raiders are leading the NFL in season ticket sales. 119 million. The next best, I want to say, was the Cowboys at 117. The Raiders surpassed the Cowboys this year in season ticket sales. And the Cowboys, when you look at tickets, Cowboys are slightly more expensive. So the Raiders are doing what they have to do, and I think the move to Vegas has been huge, man. It's a tourist town. Will it be a pro? Will it be a home field advantage? I don't know. After winning and the excitement that's building for this team, probably. It's loud, man. That's one of the things that players being interviewed have said. Allegiant Stadium is one of the loudest stadiums they've been in. So hopefully that gets better. Hopefully you see more Raiders fans. But yeah, pro sports is going crazy. If they get a Major League Baseball team here in the next couple of years, that'll be nuts. Absolutely. Congratulations to Las Vegas Ramblers, the National Volleyball Association champions, man. They killed it. They killed it this year. You've been keeping us up with updates every single week like you do because you kick ass when it comes to the volleyball scene, man. I trust in you when it comes to the source, and that's awesome, man. Championship right there. Hopefully we can see something from the Golden Knights this season. Hopefully we can see something from the Raiders. Hopefully the Las Vegas Aces can finish it out this year because they're a damn good basketball team. And I agree, man. The Aces in the sky in the WNBA Finals, pretty soon we're going to get an NBA team in Vegas. I hope so. That'd be cool. If I had the choice of the two, NBA or a baseball team, I think I'd pick the NBA because obviously the revenue, the 82 games. Listen, man. Baseball, it would have to be a stadium if Las Vegas was going to create a stadium, a ballpark. I think it would have to be along the lines of the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have an enclosed dome, and it can also open up when it's nice. When the sun's gone down and the desert heat's kind of cooled off a bit, that's probably what they're going to have to look at, and that's going to be expensive. And I don't know if Vegas is going to pony up for them the way they ponied up for the Raiders, because as we know, the NFL is king. So I think that's what's kind of going to hold back the MLB for a little bit until they get that figured out. But the NBA, it makes all the sense in the world. They're a traveling thing. It's becoming a global phenomenon, especially with all those D leagues and stuff like that. Globally, I think the NBA is a smart choice, and bringing them to the NBA to Vegas would be a big one. More tourist stuff for one of the entertainment capital of the world, essentially. So yes, I hope there's an NBA team. But let's hope we get to see a couple more champions in Vegas before that happens. I'd love to see the Las Vegas Aces finish it out, win this year. I'd love to see that. I'd also love to see the Raiders really go deep in the playoffs and make a run. They have the team to do it. They have questions on the offensive line, which we'll touch on later when we do kind of a full synopsis of that preseason game. But overall, man, there is some stuff to talk about today. The Lady Aces, again, I'm going to stay on them. I think they've killed it this season. They're number one in the Western Conference. They basically clinched playoffs. I want to say like 2 weeks ago. They're currently behind. Right now, they're in a game against the Atlanta Dream. It's at home. It's in the first quarter. They're down 4 points. I'm sure they'll pull that out. They'll be okay. They beat the Seattle Storm a couple days ago, which is huge because that was great for standings. The Seattle Storm have been sneaking up as of late. I think they're trying to take that number one spot in the West. Lady Aces have to hold that on because it's always great to have that home field advantage. But back to that playoff, guys. Back to that playoff standing or the playoff schedule. Pardon me one moment. Let's take a look here. August 17th will be the first playoff game. That'll be round one, which will be awesome to watch. The end of the regular season is August 14th, and you're going to see quite a few games there. Again, the Lady Aces and the Seattle Storm in Vegas head up that night. That could be the game for the number one seed there for home field advantage. It's a big deal. So that'll be an anticipated game. That'll be 3 p.m. Eastern time in Vegas. So 2 p.m. start. It's awesome. It's on a Sunday. It'd be interesting to watch. ABC, NBA TV, gotta love it. So we got to keep track of them Aces. They played the Chicago Sky August 11th. Man, really tough matchups to finish the season for the Lady Aces. The number 2 team in the West and the number 1 team in the East. In back-to-back games, basically. And that's huge because that's big for seeding. It could bump the Lady Aces up to first. Let's take a look here. Nope. Chicago Sky are kind of well in the lead there. But the nice thing is, Lady Aces have already clinched. They can start resting players if they want to, if they're not as worried about the seed, and we'll see them in the playoffs. Round 1 for sure. Love it. UNLV. I was reading an article by the Mountain West Wire. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to talk about that or seen that before. It was posted August 8th, so just yesterday. It was written by Matthew Kennerly and Jeremy Moss. Basically, they have Joel Klatt talking about college sports, Michigan football. It's a video in an article talking about UNLV but Rebels. Super weird tie-in. I don't understand why that happened, but the questions that Jeremy and Matt are basically talking about in this article is this the Arroyo year? Is this a Marcus Arroyo's year, right? It's his 3rd year on the job. He's definitely improved as far as the recruiting aspect is concerned. The Rebels, I mean, they have 2 new coordinators. There's a quarterback battle going on. That's one of the things that they really need to focus on is keeping the quarterback healthy this year. It'll help having an upperclassman offensive line for the first time in a long time, right? Sometimes when you're coming in and you got kids transferring out, you got to rebuild that foundation. And they've taken 3 years to do that. Now they have an offensive line that's basically full of juniors, a couple seniors. That's going to help out a lot. That means there's a ton of synergy there. There's a bunch of experience in the system. So hopefully that team can get much better. For example, the offensive line is full of transfers, but overall the biggest concern is the defense. If they can be better than one of the worst 15 units in all of college football. They were one of the worst 15 units last year in Marcus Arroyo's 2nd year as a head coach. They got to finish that up. They got to fix it. Listen, I think there's a possibility. I think I said this. Oh, I don't know. A few weeks back. I know it's been a few shows. But one of the things I know I really pointed out was let's take a look at the schedule here. I can't wait to read this other article. Can UNLV answer these questions? The biggest questions. Who will be the starting quarterback? Right? How long will Marcus Arroyo's leash be after a 2-16 record last year? I think we got to be a little more patient. He needs time to bring in his recruits. Let's pull up the UNLV football schedule. I think we talked about it, I don't know, about a month or so back. But one of the things I really want the UNLV football team to focus on, because August 27th will be the first one. Idaho State, that's probably a W. They'll play California. I think that'll be a competitive game. California is not one of the best teams in the Pac-12. They're actually probably one of the bottom tier teams. They still have really smart players, but that'll be interesting. The battle against North Texas on September 17th should be interesting. Utah State, man, that's probably a loss. Utah State is a really good team. New Mexico is up in the air. That could be a W. San Jose State, that could be tough. Man, why are they playing Notre Dame October 22nd? Did Notre Dame have nothing else better to do? I hope they're giving UNLV like $1 million for that. That's crazy. Air Force, that's a toss-up. Notre Dame, that's obvious loss. San Diego State is tough every year. They got one of the best running attacks every single year. I just don't know. Fresno State, again, I don't know. Hawaii, Nevada, there's a possibility they go 7-5, 7-6. It's a possibility, which is a bowl game. A bowl game, I think, saves Marcus Arroyo's tenure. I think that that gives them a couple more years. That it says that they're building in the right direction. Again, man, we've said this for a few times talking about UNLV. There should be no problem. I mean, I guess with NIL. NIL may have changed some things, but there should be no problem recruiting to this place. None whatsoever. This shouldn't be an issue at all. I'm telling you guys, I'm personally one of those that thinks if I would have gotten an offer, Division I offer, and UNLV was one of them, I would have taken it in a heartbeat. What a great place to go. It would have been a lot of fun. Yes, it might have been expensive, but you can work your way around that. Dude, what a great place to go play. They have new facilities, brand new, like almost $50 million football facility. They have their own locker room section in Allegiant Stadium, which is going to attract recruits. I think they're in a good spot. I hope Arroyo gets a little more time. I hope they drastically improve. They hit a bowl game, and Arroyo has an opportunity to really extend his tenure. Another article, Mountain West, right? Michael Daly. That was done yesterday. UNLV's biggest questions to answer heading into the 2022 season. And again, I'm citing Michael Bray Daly, right? Michael Daly 114. He's a writer, MC, or the Mountain West Wire. Who will be the starting quarterback? Cameron Friel is expected to be that guy. I think second year in UNLV. It's possible. Now, he's got like Harrison Bailey and Doug Brumfield looking to take his job. It's a competition. Bailey was a Tennessee transfer. That should be interesting. Power 5, Division I talent. Move into a smaller school. Sometimes that turns out to be a great thing for that Division I, that Power 5 talent. It's a big threat. It's no joke. I hope Friel, continues to do what he has to do because he got mollywopped last year with a horrible offensive line in front of him. We'll see what happens. How long will Marcus Arroyo's leash be? If he has another losing season, it's going to be tough. I'm going to say this, guys. Sometimes you can just see the writing on the wall for some coaches. It doesn't matter what program it is. For example, I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. I look at Scott Frost's situation. The guy hasn't had a winning season yet. You have a majority of Nebraska saying, well, Nebraska lost by a touchdown in every one of their losses last year. Yeah, that means there's disciplinary issues and competitive issues that just aren't being solved. That means your coaching staff isn't good enough to fix a 7-point differential against teams that you should probably be beating, right? Now, listen, Michigan, they played really tight with. That was a great game. Ohio State, they were tight with for a little bit. I'm just saying, guys. You can kind of tell when there's a leash that's getting tight. I think Marcus Arroyo, if he has a tough year this year, it's going to be hard for UNLV to really commit to him long term. He may only have 2 years left. If he has a winning season this year and they get a bowl game, that's different. Especially when you're the group of 5 situation. When you're in the Mountain West. If a coach has a winning season against Mountain West, I think that's actually a really good conference. You have Fresno State, San Diego State, you got Utah State. I mean, that's all those guys could easily be in a Power 5 conference within the next couple of years. That's great competition there. And it's not talked about enough, by the way. We forget about Boise State as well. Boise State's in there. They're always beasts. There's a lot going on for UNLV, man. They have to fight off a lot of adversity for a smaller program that's trying to rebuild. But if Marcus Arroyo has another losing season, will he be around? Not sure. It's going to be really tough. Going to be really tough. So that'll be interesting. That'll be something to maintain, or that'll be something to watch as the time goes on. And listen, it could turn out for the best. You never know. But in this case, I don't know, man. Marcus Arroyo, it looks like a tough schedule when you look at the slate. There's some winnable games. If they win those winnable games, they'll be fine. They'll be totally fine. And we got to look at the Mountain West Conference, right? Okay, so there's the Mountain Division, there's the West Division. Okay. UNLV shares the same division as San Diego State, Nevada, Fresno State, all decent teams. Okay. On the Mountain side, you have Air Force. They're a toss-up. It depends on their development and how those recruits come in, because they're a 4-year cycle, and then those guys have to go straight to the military for 4 years or commit 4 years after that. They're officers in the military after they leave. They don't usually get very heavy, but I mean towards their junior and senior years when they have those cycles, their Air Force is usually pretty decent. So it'll depend on where their cycle is on that aspect. Boise State's always good. Colorado State won't be bad. They're usually very competitive, right? Utah State, good. Wyoming, they're tough, right? I don't know if they'll be that great this year, but they're tough. Mountain West is a tough conference, man. I know it's not a Power 5 conference, but it's a tough conference. And it's a tough conference to rebuild a program in. Again, I still think UNLV is a good spot to be right now. With their recruiting, the new facilities, they're in Vegas. I know it's a dry desert heat, but man, wouldn't you rather be there than freezing your cojones off at Wyoming? Come on, man. Let's be real. Utah State, Utah's a beautiful place, but it's cold sometimes of the year. UNLV, you don't have to worry about that. Vegas doesn't really get cold. I've been out there when it's 45 degrees. It's not that bad. It's in the middle of the night. I was walking around in shorts. I'm from Nebraska, man. That doesn't bother me. Colorado State would be pretty cold. Boise State would be cold, man. Boise State, Idaho would be freezing. So it's those things. You got to talk about that. I think UNLV has an advantage. They have basically a paradise that you can bring recruits to, and it's just a matter of, can you continue to sell that? Why not? Give it a shot. See what happens. I think Marcus Arroyo's on the right track. He's getting transfers in. He's starting to fill classes, and if he has a winning season this year, it looks like it's not an easy schedule. You never know. We're gonna go to break. I'm gonna do some drops with my team here at IE Sports Radio. When we get back, we're gonna do a deep dive into the Raiders and what we're looking at, because preseason game was actually encouraging, pretty encouraging. We had some negatives, we had a lot of positives and some negatives. So when we get back, we'll discuss that and continue the show. Thank you.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it. College football, and do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well then, look no further. Join myself, Larry B, and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. They're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to another edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We are back from the break. We have touched on the Lady Aces, who begin their playoff run on the 17th, first round. But before then, they still have to battle out the Chicago Sky. Yeah, you heard me, the Chicago Sky, the number one team, and the Seattle Storm, who is right behind the Lady Aces in the Western Conference standings. It's not going to be easy, but they got to kill it. And you got to love it, man. You got to love it. Great competition. The Las Vegas Ramblers are your new National Volleyball Association champions. And Taryn Rodriguez is on the same page as I am. I think Las Vegas is the fastest growing city, sports city in the United States right now. It's killing it. It's absolutely killing it, and we're loving it. And yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I think this is a good time. I think this is a good time. It's a good time to get into Vegas sports and start seeing what we're looking at. But lots going on, man. It's killing it, and we'll see if things continue. Gotta love it. Talked a little bit about UNLV, Coach Arroyo, the situation. That season's going to kick off against some good opponents this year, man. UNLV Rebels are gonna have some good opponents. It's gonna be a tough year. I hope they go 7-6, 7-5, maybe 6-6 for that matter. and they make a bowl, because that'd be great for Coach Arroyo. I think that'd be great momentum, considering he's 2-16 in his first year, 2 years. Got to get better there. But I think the recruiting, the veteran offensive line coming back, comprised of mainly juniors, the transfers, it's really starting to help. Weak spots defense, but they can get better. They will get better. Next topic to talk about, and you got to love it, folks, because guess what? The Raiders, they had their first preseason action. First bit of preseason action. It was last Thursday, the Hall of Fame game. It was actually pretty cool, man. I didn't realize all the history that was involved with. I just didn't realize all the history that was involved with Josh McDaniels in that area. The high school that was nearby he went to. His dad's basically been a coach in the state of Ohio and basically in that city for years. And it's pretty crazy how that goes full circle, right? You're a quarterback there, and then all of a sudden you end up coaching a game for one of the most prestigious NFL franchises, or one of the most historical NFL franchises. Like, let's be honest, folks. When you think the NFL and you look at like 5 teams, the Raiders are an insignia. They're a logo that you think about. And it's so cool that you're a coach that comes full circle. You're coaching the Hall of Fame game in the same, stadium that's been revamped, and what you would have played in when you were a quarterback before going to college and playing, and becoming famous in the NFL and being one of the most decorated offensive coordinators in history. You could see the emotion. You could see Josh McDaniels was pretty hyped up. You could also see his parents, man. They were really happy. Like, they were living it up. They were crying a little bit, tearing up. And that's awesome. That's what it's all about. Listen, if sports are anything, it's kind of magical, man. It's like a soap opera. You don't want to admit it, but it's the most masculine soap opera out there. It's basically made to entertain people, and it's moving. I'll say it like this. Without sports, without that sort of entertainment, it becomes almost impossible, especially when you grow up around it your entire life. I mean, obviously we're humans. We're humans. We would adjust if sports were never invented. But imagine life without sports. Where would we be? And just to think about that, man, how sentimental it is. It's hard. I'll say it like this. One of the best movie quotes I'd ever heard, ever. And it was Moneyball. Brad Pitt, Moneyball. One of my favorite sports movies out there. I believe his quote was, "It's hard not to be romantic about baseball." I think you could say that about any sport. You could be romantic with any sport if you fall in love with the sport, if you bled for that sport, if you've run gassers for that sport, if you've done burpees for that sport, torn ligaments for that sport. It's hard not to be romantic about it. It's hard not to reminisce and understand that you were there at one point. And sometimes your fandom runs so deep that it just hits you on a different level. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a hobby. It's a healthy hobby in a lot of cases for a lot of people. It's an escape from life. You get done with your 8 to 5. You're working a construction job. That 8 to 5 becomes an 8 to 8. But when you get home, you get to go home, maybe make some wings, I don't know, order a pizza, sit down and watch your favorite team in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Raiders. And you get to escape from life for a little bit. That's what entertainment's about, man. And just imagine. So imagine being Josh McDaniels, his family, and you have a hard time not being romantic about the situation. And maybe romantic isn't the right word, but it's something to think about. It's reminiscent. You're under the lights near your high school that you played at. Your dad coached you, and you just have an opportunity to reflect about where you've come, how far you've come. And I think Josh McDaniels is in a great place. I've said this for a while. I was on the fence about him becoming the head coach, but I understand why Mark Davis went that way. And I think as long as he finds some success here, it's going to be a wonderful story, man. If this guy brings the Raiders back to that Super Bowl glory with the discipline and the accountability and the understanding, and bringing some of that Patriots way to Las Vegas, but, reshaping it, honestly, man, it's going to be a storybook. Unreal storybook. Again, it's hard not to be romantic about sports. Raiders preseason game last Thursday, Hall of Fame game. If I had a grade, I'd probably say a B minus. A B minus. I think the defense was pretty stout. This is what I can say. You can't fault the Raiders for being a better overall team because they by far were a better overall team. I think the Jaguars are just crap. I know they didn't play any starters, but neither did the Raiders. What this tells me, the Raiders' depth is that much better than the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are just a really bad team. And they won't be a team that's fighting for the number 1 overall pick by any means. I think they'll mess around and win maybe 5 or 6 games because that's kind of how it is when you have a brand new coach coming in. You're rebuilding a roster that was put together by Urban Meyer. Good Lord. So Doug Peterson has an uphill battle. I give him all the credit in the world. I think he's a good coach to turn it around. I think he's a great coach to give to Trevor Lawrence, especially with that RPO system he loves to run that he did with Carson Wentz. He made Carson Wentz and Nick Foles look great. What? Who does that? A good coach, right? Doug Peterson's the right guy for that job, and Trevor Lawrence is more talented than both of those guys put together. So I like what Jacksonville's going to be doing, but they're a crap team. So what I saw from the Raiders is they beat up on a bad team, and their depth beat up on a bad team. So I'd give it a B-. I think they ran the ball tremendously well. I think overall the passing game was hindered a bit because of the protection. But Josh McDaniels said it best himself. Sometimes it isn't about the protection. Sometimes it's about the route, right? How long does it take for that receiver to get out of his route or find space for that quarterback? Sometimes that ruins the protection. Maybe the protection's good. Maybe the 3.5 seconds is there. The routes just take too long to develop because the defense was really good on that play. There's so many factors that go into protecting the quarterback and pass protection in the pass game. And it's a lot of things that people don't talk about. What I can tell you in this game, and there's a lot of positives, the run game was fantastic. The split zone that they ran quite a bit, especially with that tight end pulling a little bit. Dude, that was badass. I think they did a great job there. The draw play they had on that first drive, fantastic. Got Josh Jacobs in the open. Some people are making way too much about the Josh Jacobs situation. The man's not getting traded. Let it go. You don't let go of a top 10 running back, and I'm going to say it right here, right now. I don't care what anybody says. He is a top 10 running back in the NFL fringe top 5, right? His issue has been injuries, staying healthy, staying reliable, right? He's a top 10 running back on a rookie contract. The Raiders are only paying him like $2.2 million this year or somewhere in that neighborhood. On a contract year, you don't give away a top 10 running back with his running ability on a contract year and a rookie contract. You just don't do it. You're not going to do that. It would have to be like a second round pick, or you're trading him for an offensive tackle. If that's possible, they'd have to be a really, really good offensive tackle to make that trade, because I think the depth that the Raiders have at running back is fantastic. What we saw, Kenyon Drake's going to come on. I know he's struggling right now. He's coming back from a broken bone, or basically a broken shin bone, right? He'll be fine. He's more of a speed back. He's more of a scat back anyway, and he's great out of the backfield. He's going to be he might be one of the better receiving running backs in the league this year, especially with the way this offense is going to run the ball. One of the positives I really saw in this game was honestly the depth of the offensive line and their ability to fight and really open up holes for the backup running backs. Again, more depth. I thought Zeus, Zamir White, looked like a tank. He looked fantastic. He is a bigger, stronger, faster version of Josh Jacobs. Watching him run, as long as he stays healthy, there's no reason the Raiders are bringing back Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs. And I'm sorry, I know that's going to hurt some Raiders fans' feelings. I don't really care. I'm here to tell you the truth. The Raiders, the Patriot way has never been to pay running backs. I think they did it one time with Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon was just a different breed back then. Okay? They had the law firm, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. I think they maybe have given him an extension, but it wasn't anything like you think it was. The Patriots have made a habit of drafting two running backs a year that fit their system, that are big, strong, and they have some quicks, and they have some hands, and they do a great job of cycling those running backs. You never know which running back is the head of the game plan each week. You want to say Josh Jacobs, but I can tell you with Josh McDaniels' experience, one week he might think Zamir White is the better choice that week. One week he might think that Brandon Bolden's the better choice because of his ability to catch the ball to the backfield. Another week it could be Kenyon Drake because his speed to the hole. That was something we saw different last year with Kenyon Drake. I thought the offense, before they made that switch to power in that last quarter of the season, I thought that offense was much faster and more vibrant, more explosive with Kenyon Drake in the game. Yes, Josh Jacobs was dealing with injuries. It just looked different when you were watching the game. He was much faster to the hole. I know that Josh Jacobs is a little more patient because he's probably more of a zone running back now than what he was coming out of college. He can do everything, honestly. You don't give away Josh Jacobs. That was something that I was really encouraged with, was the depth of the offensive line. I think they all did pretty well. And the running backs. And Jarrett Stidham did a good job of managing the game too. The defense looked sprite. I thought the defense was all over the place. You can tell that Patrick Graham is going to run a very confusing defense. You should have seen some of the switch-ups we saw. And I want to give a credit to the Las Vegas Raiders football network. I've given Sanjit some shit every once in a while. But, dude, he wasn't wrong. And I was seeing the same thing when I was rewatching that game. I thought it was very impressive the way that they were switching safety responsibilities based on the motion or the call. I saw a few times where Trayvon Moehrig, who is more of a deep safety, was coming up to play man, and they were putting one of the worst coverage safeties in the NFL, according to PFF last year, Jonathan Abram, back deep like 13, 14 yards. It was super weird. You normally want him in the box being a strong safety because he's also a very comfortable box safety. And you want your free safety that has range like Trayvon Moehrig does. You want him to be able to run the field. I thought it was fantastic. What that means is you're not going to see the same look on a consistent basis. And it's going to confuse defenses. Nate Hobbs is otherworldly. I think he'll be a top 10 corner very soon. If they keep him in the slot, he'll be a top slot corner, no problem. He'll be one of those teams in the coming years that really gets a good second contract. I just don't see them letting him go unless they follow the Patriot way there too. Like maybe they see value and they think they can get a first or second round pick out of him and trade him. I hope they don't. Nate Hobbs looks like a dog out there, man. And honestly, when you see some of the highlights, Nate Hobbs is killing it, man. He's going up against Davante Adams every practice. Iron sharpens iron. And Davante Adams has already come out and said, because I think there was a highlight released of him Nate Hobbs getting burned by Davante. It was released by Ocho Cinco. There was a little bit of trauma there, but it was just Ocho Cinco getting excited and talking about how well Davante Adams releases off the ball. It was one rep. Davante's come out and said that Nate Hobbs is one of the best young corners he's ever seen. Period. Ever played with. And that says something because he was around some really good corners in Green Bay. And he played some really good corners over his career. Jalen Ramsey, I don't know, some of those guys. So for him to say that is very encouraging. Nate Hobbs is a beast. I love that Trayvon Mullen's going to be coming back real soon here. That'd be a great, 1-2 punch to have out there. And I would really love to see Nate Hobbs stay in the slot because he's that good, man. He's huge. He can match up really well with tight ends. I love that idea. We'll see what happens, but he's looked really good on the outside. Taryn comes in the chat. He says, I was surprised Josh Jacobs played in the Hall of Fame game. The Raiders need to lock him up ASAP. Dude, they're not going to do it. He's not coming back. I'm being honest with you. I've watched the tendencies of the Patriots for years. They don't pay running backs. They just restock in the draft. And when you look at Zamir White, Zeus, and the way he played, you can see why they drafted him in the 3rd round. You can see why they traded up a little bit to get him. He's a beast. I'm sorry, 4th round. He's a beast, man. One of their 2 4th-round picks. That was the guy they picked up, and I'm all for it. Zamir White is a faster, stronger version of Josh Jacobs, believe it or not. And that's what you're seeing in the college football on a year-to-year basis now. 100%. You're seeing these guys come out, and all you have to do is scout them well or make sure that they're a fit for your team. And as long as you have a good offensive line that's growing, those guys are going to ball out. I don't think Josh Jacobs or Kenyon Drake will be on the team next year. If they are, great, but that's just my call now. I'm almost 90% sure Josh Jacobs will be a free agent. For sure. Because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and they're probably going to draft another running back next year. Maybe keep Brandon Bolden. I don't know. That's just kind of how the Patriots did it for years, and I promise you, it's one of those positions that's honestly been devalued. It shouldn't be. I was listening to Chris Johnson on Key, the morning show. I think it's Keyshawn, Jay Will, and Max. They were talking to Chris Johnson, former Titan. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer, but he's one of 8 running backs to run for 2,000 yards, right? They were asking him about his thoughts on the devalue, and it's kind of ridiculous because the running back's asked to block blitzing backers in the A gap, B gap, no different than an offensive lineman. They're asked to catch the ball, no different than in space, no different than a tight end would, right? In the middle of the field in most cases, maybe on the boundaries, they risk their legs, and then they run the ball quite a bit, which is a heavy load. And these guys are getting, they're getting devalued. They don't get them second contract. You could argue they should be the highest paid position group in all of football, but they're not getting there because of the injury levels. It's just devalued their position. Also, there's just a plethora of running backs every single year that you can draft and rebuild your running back room. Like what the Raiders did this year. You could draft one in the 4th and the 6th round almost every single year, and you're not going to miss a beat as long as you have a decent offensive line. Unfortunately, the running back has been devalued, and it's sad because they're freaky fast, freaky strong. I don't know. It's just evolved so much from what it used to be, where it's just downhill run game. These guys are just, they do everything now. So it's wrong. It doesn't feel right, but that's just kind of the way that the NFL is. That's the market. The market has its own set of values. So I don't see Josh Jacobs coming back. I know it was a long story. I'm sorry, Taryn. I just don't see him coming back. I'm 90% sure he won't be on the roster next year. I'm 90% sure that Zeus or Zamir White will be taking over majority of the carries, and the new guy that was also brought in from UCLA will be stepping up, and they'll probably draft 2 more backs, and it'll be a cycle. Taryn asks, what will be the future of Jonathan Abrams? Jonathan Abrams has to have a lights out year this year too. One of the things I think I've talked about a few times on here is he had one of the worst PFF gradings for a safety last year. While he was healthy, it was pretty bad. Let me take a look here. I want to say he was allowing like an 82 for quarterbacks ranking PFF. It's pretty bad. It's horrible. Overall grade in 2021 was a 56.9. That's not great. Where was his coverage at? So he was targeted 68 times last year before his injury. He allowed 54 receptions. Dude. I mean, legitimately, teams would target him because he's that bad in coverage. That's not good. And we're not talking about like those 5-yard dumps. That's not necessarily factored into this. We're talking about as far as the liability. He only had 1 interception. He's great with solo tackles, don't get me wrong. That's the thing I can tell you about Jonathan Abrams. He is basically an additional outside linebacker for defenses, especially if you're running a nickel. He's a smaller, hard-hitting guy that can play that linebacker role or maybe 4th linebacker role, and he can roll with a tight end if you need him to. But he's kind of an enforcer out there. And this game is evolving to the point where you just can't have those guys out there. They have to be two-way players. They have to be able to cover. They have to be able to play in the box. Jonathan Abrams' future, if he gets injured, I can for sure tell you he won't be back. I want to say that this is that year before they have to decide whether he's getting his... Actually, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So, yeah, man. It is what it is. This is the 4th year. This is that 4th season. He has to be lights out if he wants to return. Otherwise, he'll be a free agent. And I honestly, man, from what I've seen, I can only do what tendencies are. Hopefully, Patrick Graham has drastically improved his playing. But the way it's stacking up, the way it's looking, he's going to be a free agent next year. And we're going to see either a safety getting drafted or, I don't know, a veteran presence that's had experience with Patrick Graham coming in and replacing him. Don't forget, Tyree Gillespie was drafted a couple years ago. He was supposed to be another strong safety. He should be at camp and should be competing for roles with Roderick Teamer, who's been injured. And that honestly, it's a great segue, Taryn. You're awesome for that. That's a great segue into Raiders' needs. So it's pretty obvious after watching that preseason game, the offensive tackle position is super sketch, right? Even though Alex Leatherwood had a pretty decent game, he was playing against backups for the most part. Brandon Parker, on the other hand, struggled. Brandon Parker was in a lot of trouble. So if we're looking at training camp and we're asking ourselves what's the position of need, we've talked about it from day one of the offseason. The offensive tackle has to be addressed. That right tackle position has to be addressed. If you're riding with Alex Leatherwood, you better hope that Bam Bam Olaseni, and I call him Bam Bam because it's hard to pronounce his his full name. I think it's Bamidele Olaseni. He's a Utah offensive tackle. He's 26 years old. He's one of those guys that got drafted late because he went on mission, right? Good dude. 6'7", 339 pounds. He was a scouting nightmare basically as a left tackle. When you watch his film, Olaseni, he was shutting down top pass rushers. Like, I don't know, the kid from Oregon who was drafted to the Giants. He's got raw technique, raw talent. He's just big. He's super strong. And that means something. It really does. So there's a possibility that guy could really develop and be a really good tackle, but you can't expect that this year. Olaseni, in a lot of ways, when you look at him, it reminds me of Trent Brown. He just looks like a raw version of him, someone who doesn't give up on plays. You probably won't have the same attitude issues. So that, in my opinion, is what I see when I see Olaseni. And he's very similar to Trent Brown. Very similar. That'd be awesome if he turns into that too, because that would solve that right tackle position for years to come. Right now, I think you have to bank on the fact that over the next 3-4 weeks, Alex Leatherwood is going to develop, and he's going to be your starting right tackle. The problem is you don't want to get in a habit of just chipping and helping that guy all the time. He has to be able to take one-on-ones so that your elite tight ends or your very good tight end room can really get open and start finding space. We'll see what happens. They'll also probably use max protection. That's something that the Raiders have done for years. Josh McDaniels is slightly different, but they like to use backs to provide max protection, almost put 6 guys in protection. That'd be great. Again, we're talking about the Erhardt-Perkins offensive system. They are a very easy conceptual offense. You can run multiple concepts out of basically any of the formations that you have, and the idea is to get the ball out. Get it out quick and make it easy for the quarterback. Those quick routes force the defense to come up, and then that equates to deep shots later, and which is great for Derek Carr. The other thing is they're really the run game with the Erhardt-Perkins system. Since we're getting to the finite of that, it's built on a quick power game that allows guys to get upfield and really force defenses to defend the middle of the field. Like, that is what they're forced to do, because if you do that, you're open up on the outside. That's what the Erhardt-Perkins system is designed to do. It's designed to manipulate the middle of the field, the middle of the defense, so that it opens up things for the entire offense. Because let's say they start covering the outside really well, then you start going back to the middle. If they start covering the middle, you go back to the outside. There's just not enough players, especially with what the Raiders have on offense, to cover what the Raiders are trying to do. No effing way. No possible way. The only thing that's going to hold back the Raiders as of right now, in my opinion, is this offensive line group. They have to find depth. I still have no idea why they haven't contacted Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams is a former right guard last year, but a former right tackle with the Buffalo Bills. He played really well. The only reason why he was let go was for cap casualties. I mean, they had to pay Stephon Diggs. They had to pay big man out there, their quarterback. I don't know why I'm blanking on him all of a sudden. Regardless, they had to move money elsewhere, and Darrell Williams was a veteran guy that they could do that with. And then just invest in the offensive line through the draft or the fronts. But the offensive line is the most glaring need. I think defensive tackle needs more depth too. Definitely. It seems to be the defense that's really struggling right now, right? Like, you could probably add a player at defensive tackle, cornerback. I think cornerback is actually really underrated for the Raiders. They're just having depth issues because of injuries. Once those guys get back and they're ready to go for week 1, they'll be fine. I'm a little worried about the linebacker position, especially after Kyler Fackrell went down. They're going to need to add some depth there. I know he was more of maybe a pass rusher, an outside linebacker in this type of system. Still, I think linebacker is going to need a little more depth. I'm worried about Divine Diablo. He's a smaller stature guy. He's a beast. He's more of an athlete, but he's a smaller stature guy. Perriman, I think Perriman last year was probably healthy for a full season for one of the first times in his career. You have to be ready for tendencies, man. If I were the Raiders and you were already looking at trading for a player, I'd probably look into getting Roquan Smith, if you can do it, from the Bears. Why not? That's a little far-fetched, but why not? Why wouldn't you go after one of the better inside linebackers in the league and allow Divine Diablo to just really roam and do what he's got to do? Imagine Roquan and Perriman in the middle. Teams aren't running on you. No way. Bilal Nichols will be back soon. Jonathan Hankins will be back soon. Both defensive tackles, starting caliber defensive tackles that have been around the Raiders facility. Bilal Nichols is somebody that they signed this year to come in and make a difference, especially in the 0 or 1 technique, right? They want to make sure that that guy's a 2-gap player and he's taking up space. The other thing, Jonathan Hankins is the same way. He's got plus pass rush ability. He's been with the Raiders for the last few years. He likes being in Vegas. He came back. Once those two guys come back, you get a much needed veteran infusion for the defense. But I'm still on the record right now. I think offensive line and probably linebacker are two positions I really would like to see the Raiders kind of fill out a little bit, especially with the injuries that have happened. There's a possibility that even after that bad game, I know Brandon Parker is what it is. You don't celebrate injuries. You're not missing much, but he will be going on IR. It sounds like he tore his tricep, which would be absolutely agonizing and horrible, by the way. But that is what it is, man. That is what it is. So the Raiders really need to look in the offensive line. What's their plan there? Are they comfortable with Alex Leatherwood? Are they comfortable with James Illuminor, who's had has had history in that New England system under Josh McDaniels? I don't know. Can you rely on those two guys? Is Olaseni ready? Is he showing things in practice? He had a pretty decent preseason game, but is Bam Bam Olaseni ready to go if we need him? And then the other question I have is guard. What are you doing there? Lester Cotton can't do it all by himself. Is John Simpson that guy at left guard? Raiders have questions on the offensive line. I think they need to add depth. I have no idea why they haven't reached out to Darrell Williams. I hope that I've heard rumors about them trading for offensive tackles, maybe Tevin Jenkins from the Bears because of attitude issues or something that I think that this regime could fix real quick. Yeah, those are options out there, but I do think the Raiders need to shore up the offensive line if they're serious about competing this year. I don't believe they can go into the regular season with what they have now and expect that to be a permanent or a viable solution all season long. It'll be serviceable, but it's not going to be something that's necessarily going to push the needle. If Derek Carr doesn't have time to throw to all these weapons, what's the point? They should be able to get open because they're that good, but you guys get what I'm saying. You guys understand how it is, man. Only an hour show, a lot to talk about, but only an hour on a week-to-week basis. I love doing the show. This is a blast. If you guys, again, remember the regular season's coming. We're gonna have some kick-ass feedback. Taryn Rodriguez chimes in with less than 30 seconds left, says a YouTube commenter said Carr is the weakest quarterback in the division and no playoffs for them. I don't think that guy knows what he's talking about, so I'm not worried about it. He may not be the best quarterback in the division, but he probably has one of the better rosters, and we haven't seen him with this kind of talent. Yeah, he said, anyway, YouTube is not real life. Facts, man. Can't listen to these guys. They don't necessarily know what they're talking about. We close the show, folks. You guys know how it is. Hopefully the regular season comes soon and NFL Plus starts acting right so I can break down that coach's film and get you what you need. Keep an eye on the Las Vegas Aces because August 17th we have the playoffs starting. Should be a lot of fun. Should be a lot of fun seeing what the Lady Aces do. I'm looking forward to a Chicago Sky and Lady Aces WNBA Finals. So let's see if the outcome is the same as the Commissioner's Cup. Regular season is just a few weeks away with the Raiders, about a month away for that. For the matter of fact, kicking it off with the Chargers. That should be a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports.